Without the mind, there's no Buddha. Without the Buddha, there's no mind. Likewise, without water, there's no ice. And without ice, there's no water. Whoever talks about leaving the mind doesn't get very far. Don't become attached to appearances of that mind. The sutra says, when you see no appearance, you see the Buddha. This is what's meant by being free from appearances of the mind. Without the mind, there's no Buddha, means that the Buddha comes from the mind. The mind gives birth to the Buddha. But although the Buddha comes from the mind doesn't come from the Buddha. Just as fish come from water, but water doesn't come from fish. Whoever wants to see a fish sees the water before they see the fish. And whoever wants to see a Buddha sees the mind before they see the Buddha. Once you've seen the fish, you forget about the water. And once you've seen the Buddha, you forget about the mind. If you don't forget about the mind will confuse you, just as the water will confuse you if you don't forget about it. That comes from Bodhidharma. What we do in this practice is to try and go beyond this little mind. Some call it big mind, the mind of emptiness, the mind of everythingness. But where we, our sense of self, no longer is there in the same way. Dogen described it as body and mind dropping away. In the Nyingma tradition, they describe the luminous awareness of basic space. This innate luminosity, where this temple gets its name from. Luminous light temple, Myokoji. But we need to relax our minds enough to allow thought to rest. To allow appearances to rest. so that our mind doesn't go out and have contact with objects. And that's where consciousness comes from, is that meeting. So if our mind doesn't go out looking for it, it calms down. Often thoughts are called elaborations. So we learn with Shikantaze to be still, to be quiet, to not elaborate on what's already there. That luminous emptiness, that luminous everythingness. So in a sense, what this practice is about, it's not about gaining anything. It's about letting go of everything. Letting go of expectation. Letting go of judgment. Letting go of attachment, not grasping. We can't, when we're sitting still, we can't grasp literally, we can't grasp physically. So we can learn from this posture, we can learn from this asana. For those of you who study yoga, so with the body not grasping, we can invite the heart not to grasp, not to expect, not to want, not to dislike anything, but to simply meet our experience as it arises. And the same is true with our minds. To let go of the chatter, let go of the talk, let go of the stories, the well-rehearsed, well-practiced, well-worn stories. Who we are, who other people are, what this world is about, all those stories. Let them go, even for a little while. Loosen our grasp. That's really the meaning behind the instruction to just relax. That's probably the simplest meditation instruction there is. And yet there's a lot to that, as you can probably gather. So I think I'll stop there. And invite any comments or questions or sharing about your practice or what's come up. so appreciate how we can be in silence together and how there's no impetus to fill it. It's wonderful.
I'm trying, Jeffrey. I really am.
I liked when you said, Jeffrey, the mind doesn't come from Buddha. I never heard it that way. And I like it. Perhaps you have a comment?
Please, and welcome, Mahudi. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's sort of a shift in the way that we look. So rather than looking from immanent and transcendent, it's like taking the perspective of the transcendent and peering at the immanent. When we're able to really sort of settle, as it were, into our meditation, when the thoughts, when the mud settles. It's so peaceful. There's no grasping and no aversion, right? There's no pulling and no pushing. It's just equanimous, equanimity. There's a connection to everything. There's innate compassion, innate loving kindness. There's an ability to experience with. Actually, those are the four Brahma Viharas. Compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. They're all there already. It's a matter of clearing things away, so that we can perceive them more directly. What we're talking about is immediate experience, immediate experience, unconditioned mediated experience, not mediated by thinking. By habit. It's an innate openness. We just need to sort of get out of our habitual rut, which is what the sitting can allow us to do. Anyone else?
Jeffrey, I have a thought.
Yes, Joe, please.
It took me most of the meditation to settle in, and I didn't get to like the sweet silence till the very end. And I appreciated what you said, or it really was meaningful to me about and not grasping. And if the hand is not grasping, then the heart is not grasping at this story or whatever story. And it was like, oh, that's what I was doing with the first part of my meditation. And it just underscores for me how important daily practice is for me at this time.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Joe. Yeah. Yes. The form of sitting, the asana, right? The posture itself can teach us something. That's why we have the forms in Zen that we do. They're somewhat arbitrary in a sense, but the ones that we teach and the ones that we practice, we can learn from. We were talking about forms a few weeks back, I think, and about using them as a gateway. You know, we learn the form, we practice the form, and at first we focus on the form itself. But then with practice, we get more comfortable with it. And then that's really where we're in a place to learn what it has to teach us. Whether it's sitting or bowing or chanting or oryoki, whatever the form is. We learn it, we practice it, and then we can let it go and relax into it and learn what it has to teach, just like Joe was describing in her experience. But we've got to sort of shake ourselves out of habit to do this. That's why we sit down and do nothing. It takes a long time to learn how to do nothing. It takes a long time.
Can I say something?
Oh, please, Rhoda.
The less I do, the more I appreciate. And I've felt this for a long time. So it's not about just sitting. When I, when I get my life becomes too complicated, I'm not appreciating, the more simple, it could be landscapes. I had a friend visiting, and we went to Sierra Azul here in Watsonville. And I mean, just sitting and staring at a branch, I didn't need to do a whole lot and walk around. She walked around a lot, and I sat there, you know, kind of did meditate a bit, but just did very little. And I noticed that I think some of you know that I've been falling a lot lately, and there's reasons maybe, but I'm always rushing. I mean, I'm not in New York City where I lived for 12 years or whatever. It's not the way I need to be, and I feel like doing this meditation just centers me, makes me feel attached in a better way. I'm not flailing my arms and legs. No, I'm not underwater or something,
Mm.
snorkeling. No. It'd be nice, but that's not life usually. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rhoda. It's really, right, an opportunity to slow down and be really present, really, really present to what I like to call the granular details that we usually miss about life. Maybe it's the light coming from a leaf, something so simple. I really appreciate the way Thich Nhat Hanh would talk about that, about being present. So simple, not complicated. We all can do it. And really our presence is the greatest gift that we can give one another. Is to simply be present. In other traditions it's called witnessing. But it's really the same thing. To be a witness to this amazing, whatever this is, life, for whatever little bit of time that we have to actually be here for it. That's kind of the point. And that means for most of us to slow down so that we can be present or more present or present more often. Or for 2 seconds instead of 1 second. That's great. That's great.
So Jeffrey, just listening to Rhoda, reminded me that, like at work, I visited some people today, and as I was walking around and talking, I ended up standing on one leg, and I find that tends to bring me back to the present. Because if you stand on one leg and you're talking to people, it sort of focuses the mind on not losing your balance as well. So I find that I've practiced that for quite a number of years. And it always helps to bring it back.
Interesting. Reminiscent of Kinyan, of our walking meditation.
Yeah, and that came from things like the tree pose in yoga.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then closing your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we pause in our present, we see in a different way. We comprehend in a different way. We have an opportunity to go beyond appearances. That's what Bodhidharma was talking about, going beyond appearances. Well, thank you all for your effort and your intention, your practice. That's what my yoga teachers would say. Thank you for your practice. So I wish you well. For those of you participating in the practice period, like I said, I hope it's going well. Let me know if anything arises. And if we haven't spoken yet individually in Dokusan, then maybe we can think about that in the coming weeks to have a conversation together so that I can know how you are doing. And we'll continue on. I will look forward to seeing you all next week. So be well, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Good night.